So Lynn, do you want to give us some background on this?
Yes. So I have been in a variety of conversations over the last, we'll say a month, with a number of different groups, and a theme has been coming up over and over that I think Globe is well positioned to help with. And so I wanted to share this with you all and get your thoughts. And some of you probably are already moving in this direction, but some of you may not be yet, and you may have ideas, especially for local outreach. So there's sort of two parts to it, and I'll start with the higher ed piece since Mike may have to jump off or might get eaten by a cat.
Right.
So I was on a panel discussion a couple of weeks ago that was a NOAA discussion that was primarily around broadening participation and that kind of thing. But because it was post-COVID, the conversation turned to how are people working with students in this time when everybody's remote. And a couple of people talked about the fact that they were having their students, they were in some cases sending instrumentation, and it might be just probes or whatever, to their even grad students, and having them make observations locally with the idea that by doing that and manipulating the data and looking at the data, they would then be learning skills that would transfer to them working with the research data for the project when, well, when they come back, but even before they come back. So that, a couple different people on the panel said they were doing that across a couple different fields. And, I thought to myself, Globe really has some infrastructure existing that could be helpful for that. Of course, depending on the specific measurement, but one of them was an atmospheric science professor. The other one was making, I think, water measurements and maybe some soil measurements. So, it seemed like an obvious thing. So the challenge for you all is, how might we get some information in front of people who could use it, and get additional data and get additional participation in Globe as a result. So that's the higher ed piece. A similar kind of conversation happened, and it's happened in a few conversations, so they're all running together in my head. I can't really give you the specifics, but the point was made that, when school goes to kids being at home, there are all sorts of different models for how people are doing it, but in a lot of cases, what it is turned into is they're basically trying to make it look like school, right? Where you have 6 classes in a row and you sit in front of your screen for 6 hours in a row and you kind of listen to the teacher and you do whatever, which is really not a good way to do virtual learning. And so the point was made in a couple of ways that, learning doesn't have to look like that. And there are other things and other skills that you could learn while you're home. In some cases, it might just be helping make dinner and learning about fractions through teaspoons and cups and whatever. But in the context of Globe in particular, it would be a way of learning by doing while not being stuck to a screen like we all are right now. So again, I think there's a lot of potential that Globe has to offer for a lot of teachers and families, and kids in this situation. How could we, again, get that information in front of more people so that they could pick it up and run with it and give us more data and more participation? So those are kind of the two similar but different threads of opportunity that I've been seeing in the last month and wanted to share with a few of you all as leaders in the US Globe community to see if there's ways that, even if it's locally, even if it's regionally, even if it's small increments, I think there's opportunity there. So with that introduction, I'd love to have a conversation, and we can capture ideas in the Padlet and however you want to go. Or you can tell me that I'm crazy and you all have, well, which is probably true, you all have more than enough to do already. I'm sure that's true. But if we each do a little bit, there might be a way that we can make some progress.
Hey, Lynn.
Yes.
Yes, Dave. I was obviously one thing that Globe has going for it is the Globe Observer app. That was putting things, way ahead of the game. The other piece that, I think could be emphasized more, maybe could be adapted more for schools, is the e-learning. I was noticing on the Globe newsletter that went out, for the month, that it was the 4-year anniversary of e-training for the Globe program.
Yeah,
and
remarkable.
I couldn't believe it's been 4 years, and I know teachers who have done, I think over 100 of those, and it's really pretty amazing. So those are two tools that I think Globe is lucky to have that can be used in this kind of situation and can be improved upon, I guess, to fit more into a online learning perspective.
Yeah, I used Peter Nelson and I partnered a little bit on a project using Collect Earth, and then I had my students use Collect Earth, but then use the land cover, Globe Observer land cover, to go out and sample at the test plots that Collect Earth gave them. It was a really pretty amazing feedback from them about how impactful the difference was between how we usually think about remote sensing, right? And then having that opportunity to go out and do the observations that actually were ground truthing ideas that they'd had before. We had a whole bunch of the Globe teachers here, I think, wanted to use Globe Observer with their students, but a lot of the districts asked them not to send, it all fell under safety for students, right? So they didn't want the kids to go outside, is basically what it was.
Well, and that's the message we have thus far gotten from NASA headquarters communication, is that we're not allowed to encourage people to go outside even in their yards, although I suspect that may start changing.
Yeah, and there is a statement on the Globe site about this, which basically says follow local guidance, which in your case, Mike, it sounds like would be no. But there's also, I think, Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, some information about observing through the window, like clouds and land cover in particular.
Yeah, we discussed that. I'm not sure we ever really wanted to fully encourage that, except for dust, because there are safety issues with going out in dust storms anyway. I think, although we went back and forth about that, the thinking was, and I know, I'm pretty sure Jessica talked about this related to clouds, is like if you're just getting a view of the sky in one direction, that's not really complete data. So yeah, you could still do some things like having, especially more interesting to younger students perhaps, is do some journaling about what clouds they see out of the window and draw pictures of what they see in successive days, or even take pictures, but it's not really ideal for Globe data because you can't actually tell if you can only see one direction. I think the same would be true for land cover. Sure, make some observations in a general sense, but it's not really complete data. Although I don't think we don't actually have anything preventing people from sending in those observations. Globe database, but I don't think we're necessarily explicitly encouraging that, except for the dust storms.
Yeah. Although I'm having a picture in my head of some kid in a house with windows on all four walls, running around the house really fast to get cloud observations at almost the same time. That could have all sorts of advantages and disadvantages.
Well, and I mean, doing photo review, most people send in all directions, but we definitely get observations from people that appear to be outside, but still only sent in photos in one or two directions and not all directions. So it's not like we're actually necessarily getting all of the photos from people outside, but that's what we'd like.
Yeah, so I mean, I think, you know, there's potential. It depends on the place. It depends on your specific situation. I think to me, the bigger challenge is how can we get this information in front of people? You know, what are the networks? What are the communication channels? What are is there another word for that kind of thing? Probably, you know, what are the ways that we can even make people aware of GLOBE?
So we have some teachers online as well. I think it would be great to hear from them if possible. So I know there's a couple of them on there. Does anybody want to offer up something, or feel free to type in the Padlet too? Probably putting you on the spot.
But also, I mean, I would just love to hear how it's going out there in teacher land these days. I know it's different in different places, but, you know, is there room for you to even think, or are you still just trying to make it work?
So I can speak to Ohio. When the shutdown started, Ohio Department of Ed in the science started having these meetings twice a week. Actually, there are four meetings a week. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they would alter the time. One group would be 1 o'clock and the other group would be 7. And the first thing Ohio was telling the teachers, don't do normal school day. Start having kids doing journaling. Have them with the journals, look at their verbal skills, try to tie everything together rather than, as you said, Lynn, having these separate segments. The one thing that worked well is, now it's been, 2 weeks ago, my NASA data came on. It was Elizabeth and Angie, and they really emphasized the fact of looking at data. Just look at what has been collected on GLOBE and through NASA over the years, or even this past year. Just look at what the data is there and what can you learn from just looking at data. And then you don't have to worry about the students collecting the data. Though we do have 2 groups, Diana Johns in Michigan, her students have the instruments and they're collecting data and submitting it on GLOBE. And then Kevin with Marley, there we found a school in Florida, and Kevin has talked, Mount Verde, I think is the school, where the teacher was having the students, that was part of their assignment, you know, to go outside and do cloud observations. And you can see them all those data points on the GLOBE website. So I think there's a variety. The ones that it's okay to go outside, we've got people collecting data from our UT connections, and then we're pushing in our state to look at what's already there. And do the connection with the GLOBE. What is GLOBE saying, and what does the satellite say? Now, it was only an introduction, but that's some way, that was a start, and we, you know, could go further on that.
Yeah, so what I hear there and also see in the Padlet from Pennsylvania is that the state, whatever their title is, science supervisor, I guess maybe the most general title, would be a key leverage point. So I don't know if anybody within Globe has connections to the Council of State Science Supervisors that would be their, I guess that would be the umbrella group where we could possibly share some information.
And my 2 cents. Can you hear me? My
Yeah.
mic. Okay, and thank you, Lynn, for sharing this with us. It was very interesting to learn about that panel discussion with Noah, and I believe others participated. So our thinking were, and I can speak on behalf of our partnership here and on behalf of our educators in the central Massachusetts and western part of Massachusetts. Our task is to reach out those who are underserved and usually hard to reach groups. So, and I speak myself quite often with the immigrant community, different parts of our state. So we are in the process of sending out the e-blast with a survey. How what kind of models of online teaching were used during this period of time, and we understand that there are some innovative thinking really occurred during this process, and we're collecting that data. So
Yes.
I'm just going to propose that maybe we go into breakout rooms for a few minutes so that we can capture everyone's ideas. So we have 19 people online.
Yeah.
So that we can kind of work in smaller groups. If somebody could be on the Padlet, or many people can be on the Padlet, that would be great to add your ideas. So it looks like we have a lot of ideas captured here. I think I'd like to propose that there's a part 2 to this, maybe, and we send this out to the community as, you know, these 2 ideas, and people can make more comments on it. And then maybe we think of a way for people to kind of upvote, downvote. I'll reorganize kind of some ideas in here. I think that that's kind of, how does that sound, Lynn?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I definitely think there's some great ideas here, but I think that we will need more than one person to actually follow up on them. So getting interest from the community would be fabulous.
All right, so you can access this Padlet going forward. It's open to anybody. It's as long as they have the link. So what I'll do is I will follow up to my post to the Globe community that I just sent out saying, hey, come join us at this.
And that
we created a Padlet. Is that why you're here, Lynn? Because
yeah.
it was perfect timing. It's so nice to see you. I mean, I feel like we've exchanged a couple emails. So when I saw you click into the waiting room, I was like, oh, yay. So I think that's a good way to move forward with the next step. We only have 2 minutes right now. So I don't want to hold anybody past 4 o'clock or whatever time it is where you are.
Because we have to go to our next Zoom.
Exactly.
yes, unfortunately, it's just this is how our days work now.
I know, but this is the best Zoom, right?
Yeah.
This is the best one. That's certainly true.
Yeah, yes, Jen.
Dave, you always know exactly what to say. Yes, Jen. Okay, so I would like to thank all of you for your thoughts. I think the breakout rooms were a great way to move forward. So I think that that's what we'll do. You'll get a follow-up email from me. we'll get more input from the community. I'll try and reorganize this a little bit more. Maybe like get some categories going so that people can respond to that. And then maybe we have another one of our topics will be this part 2. And then I'll catch up with you, Lynn, to see what we should do next with this.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for your inputs. It was a great discussion.
And remember, if you have more ideas, just go ahead and add them to this anywhere in the Padlet, because I'm going to reorganize. So go ahead and move forward with that as well. And so I am going to say goodbye. And everyone have a good weekend if you honor the weekends anymore.